Friends, I found this video which I find really cool, and I know he plays really cool sounds. I always wanted to know what he's doing, so let's get right into it and check out.
First, when I just started to improvise, what I can do basically if I saw an A minor chord or so is go to the pentatonic scale. That can start becoming something that has some notes that are outside of the scale, like this note, this, all these notes are not in the A minor pentatonic scale.
True.
I started to add these into my playing and it sounded more like
I don't play like this at all. I have to write it down, otherwise I will forget it. I bought this really cool Leuchtturm book. Can you see that? See it? Which has really the great notation. Just pages of pages, right? So I'm going to write down just those 4 notes, and I'm going to also write down the YouTube video that I'm stealing this stuff from. And then I write down the chord, which is an A minor. And I write down those first 4 notes. Let's listen to them one more time. So those notes are not just like a bunch of notes that he plays randomly and that don't belong to the A minor pentatonic, but they're like enclosures, and they're also like a triad pair at the end of the line, so it's very checked out. Also super important, his phrasing is really great, and it's one of the reasons why it sounds so super hip what he's playing.
As time went by, I started to apply these. I remember that, wow, that was a long time ago. I started to apply these to the different positions of the pentatonic. So, you know, first position of the minor pentatonic, second one. You gotta know these. Right? I started to create those movements into each one of them. So maybe if you go to the first one, then you go to the next one, right? You make sure you have some of those chromatic movement in this position.
So basically what he's saying is he's not exactly analyzing the stuff that he's playing in this first line and then using the exact same thing in the next position, but rather he would look like for chromatic enclosures or chromatic lines in each of those positions, which seems like fun to do. Let's check that out. So I'm going to record an A minor sound on my freezer. I have these notes that I made. I wrote down what he played just like for general inspiration, but I'm also going to look what I find in those different positions in the A minor pentatonic, right? So let's find some chromaticism in the pentatonic. Right, so very easy just to connect 2 notes of the pentatonic via chromatic line. Right, you can do that basically everywhere as long as you land on one of the notes of the pentatonic again. One thing that he did, which I found very cool, he landed on like a color note. He landed on the B, which is not in the A minor pentatonic, right? But maybe we can play like a chromatic line and then land on a color note in the end, so maybe like this. So I'm just really filling in the space between 2 notes in a pattern. Let's move on to the next pattern. Right, again I could play something like this. A thing that I like to do is just to play a chromatic enclosure from above and below. Right, so if you have the C here, here in your minor pentatonic, play a chromatic note from above and romp from below. And then do this with every note of the pentatonic and it sounds kind of cool. And maybe let's find a color note here as well. Now I've ended on the root, that's maybe a little lame. Let's try ending on the F sharp. Let's end on the B. Next position. Right, let's play the enclosures again. Maybe fill in this space. Right, always if I have like a minor third and two string. And let's end on a color note again. This was so cool. Right, so I would always probably look for the same thing in every position. Let's continue what he's doing.
You might be asking yourself, how do you know which notes to add?
Right.
And that came very intuitively from listening. But as time went by, I discovered some techniques such as enclosures, which is kind of like wrapping a note with
Yeah. This is one of my favorite enclosures actually. Sorry. Right? This is like a real bebop enclosure. And you can think about this one. I think I talked about this one before. Like really, it's nice on the guitar because you can put your 4 fingers on the fretboard and the second finger is your target note. So the second finger has to be on a note of the A minor pentatonic, and then you can really only think 1, 4, 3, 1, 2, right? Like a technical exercise. I think many of you know those permutation, like 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 4. You know, they're endless. But here's a really good use for a permutation. Right, so this is the A from the... Oh, this would be the C. A nice exercise would be to implement this enclosure, this specific enclosure, into your playing. You play your A minor pentatonic and you say either you're starting with the enclosure and then playing a phrase, or you're ending with it. Let's start with it, which is a little bit easier. Right, so as long as you know where you land, you can use all the stuff. In this case, you're always landing on notes of the A minor pentatonic.
Frame, right? This is an enclosure, but you can also create different chromatic approaches such as... Right,
Oh, okay.
or...
But this one I didn't get.
This frame, right? Another thing you can do is you can just play whatever idea you have a half step above or below.
Yes. Yeah, that always seems like a cheat trick on the guitar because we only have to play the same thing 1 fret higher or lower, right? And it's interesting because imagine you would be playing the saxophone or the piano. There would be a lot of practicing going into it, right? To shift something chromatically up or down. And I feel like we jazz guitar players sometimes think we can't do it because it's just a cheap trick. But I'm exactly going to do that now because I really like that. occurred to me what I really like to do is you can play the exact same thing, right? Like play those 4 notes of the A minor pentatonic and shift that up and shift it down. Like a very cheap trick for playing outside. But what I just did is I really like to play sequences, right? Like which would be like a 4-note pattern just through the A minor pentatonic. But then I would like to shift the pattern in and out, and that sounds cool because it connects it in a less predictable way, like give it one more try. Right, and it doesn't have to be super correct, like the exact thing just like has to continue in the next position, but just like the general idea continues. I really like that. So he just played outside and then the last note was inside again. So he was back in the A minor pentatonic.
Playing around with different ideas just to create an out-sounding jazz, which is generally more associated with being jazzier. After a while, I noticed that when I've been meeting up with musicians who know how to play jazz and they were handing me those jazz tunes, that I didn't know how to play over changes. I could do this over a 1-chord vamp, and I couldn't really express the same kind of ideas when chords are changing. So that's when I started to get into triads, because with triads I kind of liberated myself, well, triads liberated me to really be able to spell out changes.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just going to give you an example with a blues, right?
B flat blues,
Just going like,
B flat minor pentatonic blues scale.
just staying there. You can spell out the changes just by knowing the triads and building upon them. You have a B flat chord, right? Learn the B flat triad. Learn to associate the 7, the 9, and start creating phrases just around that triad.
Okay, so basically he's visualizing really I didn't understand the triad of the chord. So the B flat 7, right? The triad is B flat 7 like this or like this. And then he's visualizing the 9 or the flat 7 in relation to this shape. So we would have a flat 7 here, 13 here, or 9 here. And right, E flat, we can do the same thing. 13, 9. Okay. I always start with the 4-part arpeggio. So right, I would always, if I have the B flat 7, I always would have been practiced B flat arpeggio, right, and then E flat 7. I don't know why. I should have probably started with the triads. But I think because they don't sound like jazzy at all in my ears, and I miss the 7 in those triads. Yes, I never did do that. And I think there are many ways that lead to playing the changes. For me, it was like really playing the arpeggios on each chord. Also what he said about etudes, I had a teacher who really said very much in the beginning that I should write down lines, like 8-note lines, and I did do that. I didn't understand then why I should do that. And that's the trick. Sometimes we don't understand why we should do an exercise. That's probably the best thing that you do it then without thinking about it, because we don't understand something else which is in leading us to understand it if we do the exercise. So yes, playing the arpeggios helped me hear the changes. by Starlight, and you probably could hear the chords already. And I think this is the first step, if you want to play the changes, that you would be able to play them on your own at home. Somebody who knows anything about jazz enters the room and can hear the tune that you're playing. So this is this for today, and see you next week. Bye.